Hello, hello. It's Monday evening, and that means it's paint along day. So I want to welcome you to this paint along. My name is Allie. If you're new here, I do these live paint alongs every Monday at 5 Eastern. And we just started a new series last week. So we are doing a series of florals, which I'm super excited about. And today's floral image is going to be really beautiful and awesome. We have a great reference image that we are working from. And so if you're new, let me just explain how this works. So it's free to watch these paint-alongs, and I encourage you to do that. And if you would like to paint with me, you can get a download of the outlines and the reference image that we are using. And you can do that on my website for just $10. Hi, everyone who is jumping in. Hi, Kathy and Marie. So glad you guys are all here. Hi, Amy. So this is what the outlines look like. Those of you who are painting with me, you've got your outlines already. So you get a template that you can trace, and then I just have you paint over them before we get started. So if you are here, I would love to know if you are painting with me, and I want to know where you're watching from. So please drop that into the comments. Let everyone else know where you are around the world. Hi, Mary, you're new. Awesome. Glad you found me. It's always fun when we have new people joining us. We have a lot of regular people that are here every week, but it's fun to see some newbies too. Hi, Helen. Hi, Bridget. So many of you. Hi, Jacqueline in Ohio, and Dawn. Dawn's painting, as always. Love to see it, Dawn. Oh, Judy says 5 of you are painting together in Raleigh. I love it. I love that you guys are making little mini paint parties. That is so cool. It's kind of a bummer that we can't be doing like live workshops at my studio right now, but if you guys are making your own little paint parties, I think that is fantastic. All right, so here's what we are going to do. I'm going to show you the reference image. This came from my friend Patty. I asked everybody to submit some floral images that we might use, and Patty submitted this one, which is beautiful. And I just did a little bit of editing to it in PixArt and Photoshop to kind of create what you see here. And then I made the download. Tammy in Milwaukee. Hi, Tammy. So I'm just gonna keep adjusting the camera till we get it just right. I always like to have it so you guys can kind of see my palette too. But because this is like a mirror image, I'm having a little trouble. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's see. All right, here we go. Are you guys ready? Should we get started? So I forgot to mention, I usually tell everyone who's new, I'm using golden fluid acrylics. And this is just a 8x10 wood panel. I shared the link the other day. I get these in a 4-pack from Jerry's Artorama. And I like these. I like working on a smooth wood surface more than canvas. I just feel like it flows a little bit better. And so, yep, that's what we're using. Okay, let's get started. First thing we are going to do, as always, is we are going to start looking for the shadows in this image. So I'm just going to grab a brush to get started here. I'm using flat tip brushes. Kathy says you cleaned your palette. I kind of did. I think the part of the palette that you see most is the clean part. I guess it was getting really gunked up. Everybody asks about my palettes. These are from Hobby Lobby, and I like them because you can let the paint really pile up on them, and then you just peel it out, which is always fun. Hi, Verana. Hi, Debbie. All right, so we're going to get started. So we're gonna make a shadow color using Payne's Gray and Alizarin Crimson, and that's gonna be kind of like equal parts. And then I'm watering it down, and we are going to just start finding shapes. We're gonna start finding shadows, comparing which side of the line that's on your panel is light and which side is dark. So let's kind of start up at the top, and we see that the dark blue that's in the background up there is definitely lighter than the flowers. So I'm just gonna start washing this shape in kind of dark. And I don't know if you guys have a line right here where we've got this little leaf. I might have missed that in my outline, so I'm just gonna pretend like that's there. I don't remember if I put that in your outlines or not. You know what? No, I'm not. I'm just gonna go over it. If you have a line there, you can paint around it, but I don't have a line, so I'm not even gonna bother. I'm just gonna keep my blue going across. All right. And of course, if you guys are watching this live, you are more than welcome to ask some questions about what I'm doing as I'm working here. I know so many of you that watch every week, you kind of know my process, and so it makes sense to you what I'm doing, but some of you who are new might be kind of questioning what in the world is going on. So don't be scared. Feel free to just jump into the comments, and I'm going to keep trying to check back and see what you guys have to say. All right. So I'm looking around, we got that chunk of blue. I'm looking for what's easy. So I can tell the blue background here is darker. I'm just gonna start putting that in. I find the easy stuff first, and then the areas where it gets a little bit more complicated. If I've already found the easy stuff, it's easier for me to figure out what's what once I've got some of that out of the way. Okay, looking around. So we've got like these little windows that I outlined that show that blue background. So this is blue background, I think. This is, and this is. And then in some places I was outlining the shapes of the greenery. So kind of just try to figure out what it was that I was outlining. All right, now we have a dark kind of wedge right here that goes around this bright orange flower. So I'm going to start washing that in. There we go. And you see how far I'm holding my brush back? That's always an important tip. Let's see, Sue says, if the background is blue, why are you putting down a crimson color? Okay, great question, Sue. So I start just by washing in any color. So I'm making this kind of like neutrally crimson purple color, and I'm not worried about the color of the background right now. I am just looking for shadows, and after I wash in this color, then we're actually going to put down a complementary color under painting. So you will see as I move on to the next step what I'm up to here. So I know it seems kind of strange right now. Oh, it looks like I skipped this little leaf too. You guys might have an outline there, you might not. You probably don't, actually, now that I think about it. We don't need that outline though, it'll be fine. With these quick floral paintings, it's actually important to think about what you leave out, because you can't stress yourself about trying to get every single leaf and every single blossom, because that's not what this is about. We're kind of just looking for the major shapes. So we may or may not include different elements of this painting. All right, moving along. So it's dark on the other side of this little skinny green leaf here. So I'm just gonna paint on each side of it. And I think here I was outlining some larger clumps of purple. So I'm just going to put those in dark, I think. That looks like it's maybe dark. All right, moving around. Here we've got a shadow on the picture. And we have a dark shadow here underneath the orange flower. I'm not sure what those flowers, those orange ones are. Maybe somebody can tell me in the comments. I should really know my flowers better for as much as I paint flowers. I had a client once that always asked me about my floral paintings and wanted me to know all of the flowers that I was painting because she knew flowers really well and I didn't. It was kind of embarrassing. All right, we've got dark shadow underneath here on the picture. I guess that all is kind of dark. Okay, looking around. Oh, here, this is dark. This is like some green foliage here. I'm gonna wash that in dark. And it's pretty dark right in here with the purple flowers too. These purple flowers, whatever they are, they could be kind of overwhelming if we really try to paint every single bit exactly like what we see, but we're just gonna generalize these shapes. We're gonna put these in pretty loose and we're not gonna be too wrapped up in that. Brenda says, looks like a calendula. Renee says, isn't it a zinnia? Maybe those are zinnias. Yeah, those orange ones are zinnias. I think you're right. I should know that I've done a lot of zinnias. Thanks, guys. All right. It's dark on each side of this little shoot of greenery. This is that pink flower here, which is darker than the orange zinnia behind it. Up here, this one's darker than the orange zinnia, so we're just gonna start mapping out these shapes. And it's a little bit dark on each side of the leaves there. We've got a dark shadow in the zinnia right here. And we've got some kind of dark tones in the middle here of the zinnia. I'm not going to get too carried away with trying to put all those little petals in because again, we'll just kind of get overwhelmed. So I'm just going to wash some dark in there. I'm going to make a little bit more of my recipe. Again, this recipe was alizarin crimson and Payne's gray, but if you don't have those colors, do not worry about it. Any kind of purpley neutral will work just fine. We've got some dark shapes on the leaves here. Kind of a dark little window of color underneath this leaf. It's dark in the background there. And we've got a little bud right here. That little stem's kind of dark. All right. Okay, so that looks pretty good up here. I think we're gonna move in, put some shadows down in the vase and the lower part. So it's pretty dark on each side of the vase handle here, or pitcher. It's dark over here. Definitely dark underneath it. You guys see how I'm not being too careful about these washes. This is just kind of getting the general shapes in there, so it starts to have some depth to it. Judith is asking what size brush. This is a number 4 flat brush, and these are Blick Essentials brushes. That's what I'm using right now. All right, we've got dark right here. And actually, this whole left corner, lower left corner, is really pretty dark. So I'm just gonna go right in and push that pretty dark. Doesn't matter if this new tone matches my other tone, because like I said, we're gonna layer so much color on top of this that it really is not gonna make a difference. We've got some strong highlights here. So I've got a dark shadow in between those highlights, a little bit of a dark shadow right here. All right, make sure that this edge of the platter kind of makes sense as it goes behind the picture, because if you get that a little bit wonky in the beginning, that could really kind of mess with you later. So sometimes things like that I have to be pretty careful about, but things like flower petals doesn't really matter. And the left side of the picture is all pretty dark, so I'm just gonna wash that in a little bit more. Got a shadow under here. Little shadow right here. Ooh, that got a little bit dark. I'm just gonna blot it. And this shadow kind of goes across a little bit further. It's all pretty dark over here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. We'll wash in this little spout a little bit darker too. Just looking to see if you guys have anything to say. We've got some dark tones right here. Ooh, that was too wet. It's blending down on me. All right. And if you are painting with me, let me just say that, you know I paint quickly, but that's just because I want to get all this information to you in just 1 hour. But you guys can always come back and watch this as a replay and kind of paint at your own pace. So I really encourage you to think about doing that. You know, sometimes it's fun if you want to get started with me, and then if you feel like you need to just stop and watch the rest, you can always do that and finish it up afterwards. Okay, so we got like a pretty good amount of washes in here. Now we're gonna go back with the same 2 colors, but now we're gonna have less water so that these 2 colors are gonna be much darker. And I'm going to go back over the darkest shadows in my painting. So I'm just loading up my brush and I'm gonna look for those very darkest places. So I have a nice dark window underneath this orange zinnia. There's like a little triangle of dark. So I'm just gonna pop that in there because I know it's right here and it's very dark. And that's gonna help me kind of get an anchor point for everything else. Now up at the top here, it's also quite dark where we've got that purple flower behind the zinnia. So I'm just gonna drop some of those nice dark shadows in there. Moving around, it's also really dark on the right side of the picture. And by making this background really dark, what it's gonna do is it's gonna make that right side of the picture, which is white, pop out extra bright. So one way to make something look brighter is to make the thing next to it darker. We've got some dark shadows down on the platter here and underneath the picture. Got a pretty dark shadow. Then looking here, we've got some dark shadows in between these vines, or not vines, stems. Let's see, Mary's asking, where do you purchase your paints and brushes? So these are both from Dick Blick. I get my golden paints either from Dick Blick or Jerry's Artorama, and the brushes I got from Dick Blick. And the palettes are from Hobby Lobby. And if you go to my website, allykstudio.com, I have on the main page there, you can get a download of the list of my favorite colors from Golden. I have about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 colors that I buy from Golden, and I know that they sell hundreds of colors of paint. So I just broke it down for you, the colors that I use the most, that I think are the best ones to purchase if you're new to Golden paints. All right, push this a little darker. So we're still using the same colors the whole time, guys. This is still just alizarin crimson, Payne's gray. It's just, you see how we're building up more depth. We're finding more shadows. It's pretty dark in here. This is just kind of like our introductory roadmap as we're moving along. And getting this stuff right is going to make it easier when I start layering in the actual colors, because I'll know where all these shapes are and I won't have to second guess it. So that's the reason why I work in this process. Just kind of squinting to see what's the most important information that I need to include. Like I said, don't get too scared in this purple area. I know that seems kind of messy and overwhelming, but we're gonna fix that up. We're gonna clean that up so that makes a little bit more sense later. Not yet. Got some dark shadows in here. Okay, maybe I'll just bring that dark across. I'm gonna wash this in a little bit darker. So this is almost like a watercolor painting. I know I've said that before, but in this stage, we're kind of just like saving our whites. We're leaving those white areas and pushing the darks. So Lucy's asking, is this watercolor? No, actually the Golden paints, because These are fluid acrylics, but because they have so much pigment in them, you can really water them down like similar to watercolor, and they will just pack so much punch. So that's why I push the golden paints too, because I know they're expensive, but you get so much out of them. It's really amazing. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next step. So this first stage, we are just building up all these shadows, looking for the dark areas, and just kind of mapping everything out. Now we're going to do a wash of a complementary color over everything. So try to make sure that all of this first layer is dry. I'm just going around and kind of catching the wet spots and scrubbing those in, because we don't want this to be wet when we do our wash over it. Normally I would like step away from it for a little while, but because this is a live demo, we're not going to do that. So we're just going to get this much done and hope that it dries pretty quick. So let's talk about complementary color underpaintings. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Is my mouth's dry already? Let me know if you guys have any questions. All right, so I'm gonna switch to a bigger brush now when I'm gonna do my wash, because it will just make it a little bit easier. I'm gonna grab my number 7 flat tip brush here. And I think the color that I'm going to use for under, I think all of the flowers except for the purple ones, I'm gonna do a wash of permanent dark violet. It's one of my favorite colors to put down, or permanent violet dark. It's one of my favorite colors to put down for an underpainting. Now I know a few of you have mentioned that this color has been hard to get from golden lately. And I hope that that changes. But if you can't get it, a good substitute would be to use quinacridone magenta, which is another color I really like, and then add some blue to it. You could do like ultramarine blue or phthalo blue. Let's see, someone's asking, are these acrylics diluted with water? Yes, that is correct. All right. So let's wash in that quinacridone magenta and hope that our paints are mostly dry here. So like I said, this is gonna go over pretty much everything except for the area that's going to be purple. I know it seems counterintuitive. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but this is what we're doing. This is going over underneath all the green areas, all the orange areas, all of this. So I know it's not like the true complement, it's not the true opposite. It's kind of the opposite of the orange. Purple and orange are kind of opposites. I guess maybe the true opposite of purple would be yellow. And of course the true opposite of green would be red. But because this is a nice warm purple, it kind of works for all of it. So sometimes I will generalize my shapes a little bit and just call all of this, you know, a similar warm area, and we're gonna put a purple underneath. So we're just gonna wash all of that in, this whole hunk. Make sure that your purple is watered down enough that you can still see your underpainting shapes. You don't wanna lose it. Okay, now the blue area in the background and the purple area and the vase, I'm gonna call all of that cool. So I'm gonna put down a really warm tone. So I'm going to do my warm tone will be alizarin crimson and Hansa yellow. And those of you that do my paint alongs very often, you I'm sure recognize these are kind of my go-to underpainting recipes. I do these a lot. So we're just going to water that down and wash over all of that. Put a little bit more Hansa. It's Hansa yellow opaque. And if you are painting with me and you have the download, you got a list of all the paint colors that I'm using, that all the paints that I recommend using for this demo. So just washing this in over all of it. I don't know if I'm gonna do this under the platter yet. I might do a different color under the platter. So I'm gonna put this under the vase. You see the paint's kind of moving on me, so I'm just like catching it, but it's fine. So I put it kind of light over the vase because I know that this is gonna be brighter than the blue background. And I'm putting it in a little bit darker over the areas of blue background. So like up here where I know it's a nice dark blue background, I'm gonna put this red in kind of heavy. So I'm thinking about that. I'm washing over all of this dark that I put in, this dark. Okay. Now let's see, what color should we put underneath the platter? The platter is kind of like a gold color. So I think I'm gonna actually, just to be kind of fun, I'm gonna put down phthalo blue green shade. I think that'll be pretty because I'm gonna use some of that phthalo blue later. So I'm gonna water down my phthalo blue. This is a super strong color and I need to water it down maybe a little bit more. And I'm just gonna wash this over the platter. It's okay if it's kind of blending in with the other colors a little bit. We're starting this loose so that it'll stay loose. If you start your painting too tight, it's gonna stay tight all the way through. That's why I start with a loose under painting. And that certainly is loose. Okay, yeah, this definitely feels like watercolor, doesn't it? All right, how are you guys doing? Hanging in there? All right. So now we've got the underpainting in here. Now we're gonna start with the actual colors. We're gonna start kind of bringing out the frosting of the painting. All right, so now we're no longer going to mix with water. We're gonna start mixing with glaze. And so I'm using Liquitex matte medium. You can use any glaze. I just like the matte medium because I don't like the glaze to be shiny. I like it to be more of a matte finish. So we're gonna start thinning our paints with glaze, and that's going to allow this underpainting to kind of shine through as we're layering on top of it. And so I'm going to switch down my brush a little bit because I'm gonna start getting a little bit more detailed with this. I think maybe I'll go down to the 2 that I have here with my Blick paints. And let's start it off by finding this orange zinnia because that's gonna give us just a good anchor for working on the rest of it. So we're gonna make that color using Hansa Yellow Opaque and a little bit of Pyrrole Red Light. I really like these two colors together to make orange. That's kind of my favorite orange recipe. I really like the Hansa Yellow Opaque because most yellows are very transparent, but this one packs a little more punch. And I don't know if I need to even add any glaze. Let's just do these two colors and see how that looks. That might be good. So let's start finding some of these petals. And I'm not going to worry about blending my strokes. I'm gonna lay down a brush stroke and just let it be. But I'm also gonna be very conscious of leaving little bits of that purple underpainting showing through because we put that down for a reason and we don't wanna lose it. So I'm looking for basically the highlights. I'm not gonna put this on every petal. In some places, I'm just going to let the purple just sit there as the shadow. So I'm looking the center of the flower is kind of right here. It's kind of like off to the side. We've got a little dark chunk in the center there. So I'm kind of working my way around. And over here, in some places, I'm gonna let the little petals kind of mush together. You don't really wanna have like the exact perfect spaces between each petal because that's going to look too mechanical and it's just not gonna feel very natural. That's probably the best advice I can give when you're painting flowers is let it be random. Don't get too mechanical. And maybe that's why I like painting flowers. And that's why I don't like painting things that are technical. Yep, moving along here. Okay. Kind of squinting to see. That might be enough of my first pass. So this is, we're gonna bring out brighter highlights yet, but I just wanna let this set up for a minute before I come back with some brighter strokes. So while I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna do one more right there. While I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna move to another orange flower. So let's move to the one up here. The one up here has a little more red in it. So I'm gonna put a little bit more pyrrole red in there. Just a touch more to kind of alter my color a little bit. And we'll just start putting some of those little shapes in there. This one's kind of peeking in from behind. Okay, I think that's all I'm gonna do there. Now the one over here is actually more yellow and it's brighter. So now I'm going to add more yellow, but I'm also going to add a little bit of white to it. So now we've got Hansa yellow, pyrrole red, and white. I'm using titanium white. So we'll start putting some of that in. Now it's behind this red flower, so we just kind of have a little window of it poking through over here. Good enough. Okay, so now that I have this lighter color and I've let this set up for a few seconds, I can probably go in and start putting some brighter highlights on these petals. So I can use that same color that I was using to put those highlights in. So let's look. Some of the brightest highlights are kind of right in the center here. So I'm just gonna layer this on top, not blending it, just touching it in. And I'm not like completely filling each petal. I'm just pulling out some of the brighter tones on the tips of it. But it's not gonna be on every tip either. Again, we don't wanna treat every petal the same or that's gonna be too mechanical. So it's just gonna be on a few. We can come back later and put a little bit more detail in. Maybe a little one right there. And don't worry about getting all of the exact same number of little petals and all that. None of that's gonna matter. Nobody's gonna count your petals. It'll be fine. Okay, so I think that's good for now. Let's leave those. We'll come back a little bit later. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I wanna know, I saw a few of you mentioned you were painting along with me. I wanna see if anybody new jumped in who hasn't told us yet that you're painting with us. I'd love to know. Okay, so what are we gonna do next? Let's think about this. I think that I want to probably find these pink flowers next. I think that'll be good placement, and then we'll probably move on to doing the green leaves. So for the pink flowers, we're going to use quinacridone magenta and white. And I might just start with that. And I know I hadn't used any glaze in the other orange flower recipe. And I don't know if I am right now either. I think I want these to kind of stand out right away. So I don't know that I'm gonna add any glaze to this right now. So quinacridone magenta and white we're gonna use to start this off. And these, there's not a lot of texture in these. These are just kind of big blocks of color, and this tone is not gonna show up that well. Let me just give you a little disclaimer. It's gonna be hard to see because it's pretty similar to the purple. So don't worry if you're having trouble seeing those. When we put the greenery in over the purple, the flowers will pop out, I promise. And we'll probably pump these up with some more intense red tones too. But for now, I just wanted to get a little bit of this magenta in there just to help us kind of figure out where these shapes are before we go any further. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. So that was just the magenta and white. And now let's go in and start putting some of those green tones in. Now I always say be very careful with green because most of the time we have a tendency to make it too intense and then it looks fake. So I always kind of dull my greens down. We're gonna make, this is like kind of a minty green. We're gonna start with the slightly darker tones of it and then we'll work our way up towards the brighter tones. So we will make that tone using phthalo green blue shade, which is super, super intense, just a little bit of it. And we'll use white and we will use Hansa Yellow Opaque, but now we need to dull it down or it's just gonna be like silly bright. So let's put a little bit of that Pyrrole Red light in there to dull it down. Always dull your greens, almost always. Unless it's like a very brightest highlight, then you could have it be like a real bright spring green. Let's see, a little more green. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of glaze. I'm gonna thin that out. That'll help to dull it because some of that purple's gonna show through. I don't know if you guys can see my color I'm mixing or not. I'm gonna add a little bit more glaze. Okay. So we'll use this to start finding some of these leaves. So I see there's one behind that pink flower. And then we've got some poking through up here. You know what? I might have my green too intense now that I look at it. Ooh, that's a little too much. I'm gonna dull it down some more. I'm gonna put some, I'm gonna add a little alizarin crimson to mine. So you could use any red to dull your greens down. The alizarin crimson is more of a brown red, so I feel like this might work a little better. All right. Yeah, that's a better duller green. That's better. All right, so I'm looking for kind of the darker areas of green. There's one little leaf there. This leaf coming out right here is kind of dark, but I'm still letting my purple show through. And then I think once we get to the point of putting those brighter, mintier greens in, that will also help us to see the shapes a lot better. Dark on that stem, dark right there. This is kind of dark here. I'm actually really tempted to just start putting those mintier greens in now because there is a lot of it, but I'm just gonna drop a few of these dark ones in first. Thin it out with a little bit more glaze. And we've got a few of those kind of, this green over here, kind of working through the stem of this purple area, so I'm just gonna put a little bit in. Most of that green is darker and cooler, but we've got a few kind of these brighter green highlights that I'll just drop in just to put a little something over there. Okay, now let's add more white to this. So I'm gonna drop more white into my green recipe, which will lighten it up quite a bit. And we'll use this to start finding some of those bright green tones. So we've got, let's see, we've got some bright right there. And you see how I'm not like second guessing, I'm just laying down the stroke and letting it be. So that's just, it makes your paintings feel more powerful when you can just lay one down and call it done and not overthink it, I guess. And it's okay if the shape is a little bit different. Nobody's gonna care. Sometimes I kind of like twist my brush to get it to go like skinnier off to the edge. We've got some kind of bright tones right there. There's a bright one coming in underneath here. You guys are being quiet tonight. Maybe that means you're all painting and you're so focused. That's what I'm hoping. And if you are painting, I always say I would love for you to share your painting in my group, Allie's Paint Friends. That's my free group. And so everybody that does the paint-alongs will share their paintings in there afterwards, and it's always so fun to see how everybody's turns out because they're all like similar, but then they're all different. It's pretty cool. Very cool to compare and not compare. I shouldn't say that. You don't want to compare yourself to others. Just to see what different perspectives were on the same piece. Don't compare. Don't do that, guys. Okay, we've got a few little bright bits right in there. Bright one coming down. All right, and I had that one that I didn't outline that comes down right here, so I'm just gonna figure out where that is and drop it in. I didn't do that all that well. There. Okay, so let's keep moving. We'll do more of the greenery later, but I think we got enough in there to have it start looking like something, right? Just looking at our coloring here. I hope that you guys are getting a good view here. I'm adjusting my lighting just a little bit. It's always hard with changing light, but I think that works. Let's see, Denise says, you make it look easy, makes me feel like I can do it too. Perfect, Denise, that's exactly what I'm going for. I hope that you do feel that way, and I do think you can do it. It's just a process. I mean, you just kind of learn, you just learn the techniques and you practice, and I think a lot of my paint-along friends are pretty amazed at what they have done just by watching these demos and learning from them. All right, sorry I'm losing my voice tonight, guys. I'm gonna drink some more water. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so let's put the vase in. I think that'll be nice to include. So the brightest part of the vase is obviously the right side, but I would say be careful not to make it too bright. You know, you might think that this is white over here, but it's actually quite a bit darker than what you would imagine. So I'm going to switch to a bigger brush because I want to do some fat strokes in here. So I'm actually using my number 7 brush as I put this in. And let's see what we want to do. Let's make our white. We're going to start with the highlight, and let's make it using white and some Payne's gray, and a little bit of alizarin crimson. So it's gonna be kind of like a bluish purple tone. That's how we're gonna tone it down. I'm gonna put some glaze in there too to let my underpainting show through. Put a little more white in. A little bit more alizarin. And we will go brighter. This is just gonna be like the first pass at where the highlights are. Yeah, so I'm going to leave little bits of that kind of orangey underpainting popping through in there. I'm not going to cover all of it up because I always say I wanted that there for a reason. And we've got highlight along the stem here, right here. Coming down. All right, one swoop across the bottom. Now we want to be sure that like our rounded brush strokes kind of framing this picture in, we want to make sure they don't get wonky. So like I say, do it loose, but you want to make sure that that arc makes sense, because if it's, you know, if it's off kilter, it's going to be like a dead giveaway that there's something weird about your painting and that it's not right. So it's like loose but not wrong, if that makes sense. And some of that just, you know, comes with having a steady hand and practicing a whole lot. I have quite a bit of glaze in here. I'm really letting that underpainting kind of shine through because I like that contrast. And that, I think, when I thin these paints out and let the underneath color shine through, I think that's what kind of gives it more of like an oil painting quality, because it kind of gives it that more luscious color, I guess. I think a lot of people are always amazed what we can do with acrylic paints. There's always kind of a thought that acrylic paints don't have the vivid quality of oil, but I find you can do a whole lot with them. And I love acrylic paints. I mean, I like oil too, but I just like to paint so fast that I can't do it with oil. Okay, so we got some of the picture in there. Now we're gonna go in and brighten up the brightest areas. So I'm gonna add more white to that recipe, so it'll make it a little bit more opaque too. And yeah, my stem here is too skinny. I need to do a little correcting there. I might need to switch to a smaller brush to get my stem a little bit better. But we'll see. For now, I'm just gonna keep going. So because we started out with the paints not being totally bright white, that gave me some room to make the next layer stand out and contrast that first layer. Whoopsie. My arc was a little funny. Just trying to fix it. Sometimes you need to get away from these too to really have a better perspective of what's going on, especially like with the shapes of your vase and kind of the arcing. All right. I don't want to putz around with this vase for too long because I want to keep going. So get a little highlight here. And then at the end, I'm gonna go back and brighten that white up even further, but this is wet right now, so I don't wanna mess with that. Okay, so now let's put some of that purple in because we haven't done anything over there. I'm going to go to my number 4 brush and I'm going to start putting that purple in with permanent dark violet and white. So I'm gonna use a little bit of glaze in there to let some of that underpainting show through. And I'm gonna look for the darker areas first. So it's definitely darker down towards the bottom here. And I'm still gonna leave those little bits of that underpainting showing through. This is dark. Got some dark areas here. And when I do my next pass at this, it will be lighter, and that's where I can start to kind of give a little bit more form to this area. So right now I'm just kind of filling in big blocks. If I were doing this as maybe a different type of painting that wasn't like such a kind of quickie, I might be a little bit more meticulous about where I'm putting this color right now, but this is meant to be a quick tutorial. So we're just gonna kind of map it out as knowing that this whole area is basically like some purple tones. So we got some paint mashed into there. So now let's go back and do another pass with a lighter tone of purple. So I'm gonna add more white to it. My white's a little bit contaminated, so I'm gonna grab some new white and just lighten up my area, my purple area here. So It's permanent dark violet and white, and now this will be a little bit more opaque. And you know, I think I want to warm it up a bit. I'm going to put a little bit of that quinacridone magenta in there. I like to add some. So this is going to make it more of like a pinky highlight. So I see these pinkier highlights up towards the top. And again, don't do the highlights everywhere. Don't have them too calculated and too like perfectly planned out, because then it's gonna start feeling kind of fake. So we've got some here. We want it to be random. And I see the warmer pink highlights are up towards the top. Down towards the bottom, maybe we have one there, but then they get to be a little bit more of a cool highlight. So I'm gonna change it up a little bit over there. Up towards the top though, we're just gonna drop a few of these warm highlights in. All right, so let's switch to the cool highlight. So now I'm gonna go to a new spot on my palette because I don't wanna use the quinacridone, and I'm gonna put a little bit of phthalo blue in there. So now it's going to be permanent dark violet, phthalo blue, and white. And that's where we're gonna put some of those cool purpley highlights in. That phthalo blue is super strong though, so you just need a tiny bit of it. And we'll just kind of dance a few of those little blue highlights in there. Ooh, I like how that looks. Yeah, and that is gonna contrast this orange super nice. You see how that looks nice against the orange? I knew there was a reason I really like this image. All right, so just drop a few of those in there, maybe up here. That is coming along. Okay, getting there. A little bit right there. And you know, actually, I'm gonna put a little glaze in there and I'm gonna use this highlight, or it's a highlight up here. I'm gonna use it as a shadow on the vase. See how I mapped out the shadow on the vase? I'm gonna drop this color in for that shadow. I like to let colors bounce around and reuse them in other places, and it saves me time. So I like that. And then I see some of that shadow up here on the picture, which I keep calling a vase. Sorry guys. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make this edge look a little bit better, but I'm just gonna get these dark tones in and then we'll fix that edge. Got a little bit here, yep. Drop it there. Okay, that was helpful. That I liked that. All right. We need to put some of that dark blue background in. Let's do that. So I'm cleaning my brush off really well, and for the background, let's make that using phthalo blue. I'm sorry, not phthalo blue, guys. Payne's Gray. Sorry if you just dipped into your phthalo blue. Let's do it with Payne's Gray and white. And let's start with that. Payne's Gray and white. And we're gonna put a little glaze in there. Let's start looking for these areas of the background, but I'm still leaving little bits of that reddish orange underpainting in there. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's move it along, getting there. I think putting this dark color in the background is gonna make those flowers pop out. They're starting to already. So I'm looking for these little windows of dark that are kind of where the background's poking in there, and I'm just dropping them in. So let's see. Oh, we haven't done that one flower up there. We gotta add that one in. And pretty dark up here. So we're really just generalizing the shapes. We're not getting too detailed here. We can always add more detail later. That's the thing, is you kind of, it's like it's coming into focus. So we're starting with it, you know, really kind of loose and random, and then it's gonna gradually come into focus. Now the rest of the background is a little bit lighter, I think. So I'm gonna add a little bit more white to this. So this is just Payne's Gray and white. I'm just gonna lighten it up a little bit. So I'm looking for these little windows in between my purple flowers. They don't have to be in the exact same spot. I'm just looking. I've got a big chunk of blue right there that we could put a little window in. I had them outlined before and then I kind of lost it. So it's okay. You probably did too. But let's just remember there's some blue areas kind of poking in there. And I might make that more of an intense blue and that'll help to find them too, I think. I'm gonna darken it just a bit. I see some little dark spots in the center here that I wanna put in. All right. Oh, you know what? When we did this edge of the picture, I kind of lost my dark chunk right there. I need to put that back in. So I'm going to switch down to a smaller brush and I'm going to use Payne's Gray and Alizarin Crimson, and I'm gonna put that dark shadow back in because I feel like that shadow is really important. I'm gonna try to get it in pretty carefully because it changes the shape of the vase if I don't have that in correctly. That's a little better. We've got another little chunk of a shadow right here. My brush is starting to split. I need a better brush. But that helps. That kind of gave form back to that flower. Maybe I'll do one more little chunk here. Yeah. All right, yeah, that brought that flower out. All right, I'm just gonna take a quick peek at our time here. Oh, we're almost at 6, so let's kind of finish up some last minute kind of details here. We have not done anything to the platter, so let's just plop that in there, shall we? So the platter is kind of a gold color, but it's super dark over here. Let's worry about the highlights over here first. So we're gonna make our gold using Alizarin Crimson, which you wouldn't think of for gold, but trust me on this. We're gonna use Alizarin Crimson and, whoops, wrong end of the brush. Awesome. We're gonna use Alizarin Crimson, Hansa Yellow Opaque, Alizarin Crimson, Hansa Yellow Opaque. We're gonna use some white in there and we're gonna use some Payne's Gray. So it's basically yellow, red, and blue, but that's how we're gonna make this neutral. We're gonna put a little bit more of the yellow in to make it feel a little bit more gold. And I'm gonna add a little bit of glaze in there. And just gonna kind of drop it in. And I like my blue underpainting, so I don't want to put too much in there. Look at how big of a brush I'm using. I'm just gonna plop that in, let my shadows stay dark. I'm gonna bring some over here. All right, we've got a reflection underneath. That's kind of bright. Okay, over here, it gets really dark, so I don't think I want to put anything there. We'll put a little bit of this gold up here. And then our highlights get pretty bright. So I might need to switch my brush and just put some of those really bright highlights in. So I'm just gonna add more white to what I've got going here, like a lot more white, and put some of those real bright highlights in. So it's over where the blue is. Try to have a steady hand to get that arc right? I'm not gonna worry about that little dotting on the edge of the platter. That's too much detail. We don't need to deal with that. If you're having trouble with this arc, you could always like steady your hand with your other hand. And we got a reflection here under the vase, coming down. Got some reflections here. Okay, I don't want to do too much with this because I want to do a few more little things before we wrap it up today. I want to put some brighter highlights. Let's get this flower in. We never did that one. So let's put that one in with Pyrrole Red, Light, and White. Don't put any yellow in there, just Pyrrole Red, Light, and White. I think that'll look really pretty. Yeah, so we've got it kind of poking through up here behind our greenery. My shape of my flower kind of changed a little, but it's okay. Yeah, that red really pops. Let's put some of this red on these flowers too. But let's put just a little bit of magenta in it now. So now it's Pyrrole Red, Light, White, and some magenta. And let's look for, yeah, see how bright red that is now? Because we've kind of got a base to build it up on. So we'll just do a couple little dashes there. Same thing over here. There we go. Okay. So let's put some brighter highlights in this center flower because that is kind of like a focal point, and I want to get some of that in before we call this done for tonight. So we're going to go back to that same recipe, which was Hansa Yellow Opaque, Pyrrole Red, Light, and White, and we're just going to add more white to it. Make sure your white's not contaminated. If your white is dirty, you got to get a different white. Mine was a little bit dirty because I went in it with blue. That will kill your color if you've got blue in there. Okay, so now I've got this really nice and opaque, and I'm just going to pull out a few of the most important little dashes here. I'm going to do a couple up here too, just a couple, and maybe over here. There we go. Okay, now let's do a few bright green highlights over here, but let's make a new kind of fun green, and it's just going to be white and phthalo green. So we're gonna like kind of exaggerate the mintiness of it, but I like those two colors together, so that's what I'm gonna do. So just white and phthalo green, it's gonna look really pretty if we just kind of dance this color around as we wrap this painting up. I need a smaller brush. What can I use for a smaller brush? I'm gonna use this one. Yeah, this mint color is gonna be really fun. So this is just white and phthalo green. And yeah, that's gonna like pierce against the golden colors. And that's gonna be fun. Yeah, I like that. We're gonna probably put this in a lot of places, probably too many. And this is gonna make some of these little stems really pop. Again, I probably am gonna do this too much, guys, because I like it, but you decide how much of it you want to put in. couple there. Okay, I feel like I need to put it somewhere else so it's not like just right here. So I'm gonna drop some onto my pitcher because I want the color to bounce around. I want it to make sense, and sometimes the way you make a color make sense is by putting it in other places so it's not lonely. And I might cover some of this greeny blue up with some of my whites that I'm gonna drop in at the end. But I wanna kind of sandwich these in here. We've got some little bits of it over here. I'm gonna add a little more green into it and make it a little bit darker to put over here. Okay, yeah. You know what, let's put a little blue in it over here. Let's add a little phthalo blue to it. So now it's gonna be phthalo blue and phthalo green. So it's gonna be a little darker because I want to make these little windows blue. That's too dark. I want these to be a little bit more blue. All right. Yeah. So this is kind of like the background showing through here. Sorry, I'm getting text, guys. It's kind of like this explosion of blue that's kind of like wrapping around our flower colors. I like this. And here, you know, this is like me kind of going overboard just because I am having fun with it. And I know we're getting a little bit over our time here. You guys know we always do just a little bit because I want to have extra fun. Let's put a few more highlights on the edges of this purple flower just to make that pop out from the background a little bit more, just a tiny bit more. So I want to brighten up this bright purple. So if you remember, the recipe for that was the quinacridone magenta, white, and permanent violet dark. So now we're just gonna put more white in there and really brighten up that edge. Quinacridone magenta, white, and the permanent violet dark. So let's just dance a few little bits around the edge there. That's gonna give it some sparkle. Let's see, do I want to do it anywhere else? I do see some kind of highlights over here too. My little highlights are getting to be a little bit too similarly shaped, so I need to change that up. It's starting to look too much like my brush shape. That's not good. Okay, that's better. All right, so very last wraps on this. Let me think about it. I want to probably put some straight white on our pitcher. Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do last. So find yourself some clean, straight white. And we'll just do a couple strokes of that over what we have built up here. So brightest areas I'm seeing are right here. And see how much that stands out because we've built up that underneath base? It's kind of amazing. And so this just is going to give it a lot of reflections. But don't get carried away. We just want this in a few spots, and maybe that is all I want. Yeah, I think that might be all I want. Okay, just looking at our time. Yeah, we should probably wrap this one up. So I'm going to, think I'm gonna call this one done. I might tweak mine a little bit. You know, let's put a little highlight right here. Sorry guys. I'm just gonna go in with this kind of gray purple and put that little highlight in over here. I feel like the platter is a little bit more reflective than what we indicated. Let me just do a little bit of it. Okay, be done. All right, you guys want to take a closer look at what we did there? Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I appreciate it. I would love for you to share your paintings in my group, Allie's Paint Friends. Also, guys, I always love it when you share these videos. It means so much to me, and it allows more people to kind of discover these free classes and have fun and maybe discover some hidden talent. So thank you again, everybody, and I will see you next week, Monday. We're gonna do another floral. We're gonna do at least 3 more florals. We're gonna do at least a series of 5, maybe a little bit more. So, all right, have a good night, everybody. Bye.